Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. Today I am painting a bat from Oathsworn Miniatures for use in Burrows and Badgers. This particular bat is going to be like a magical evil assassin for my evil warband. And I have to say, one of the most challenging miniatures I've ever had to paint. I've started with a Chaos Black undercoat, and then I'm going straight to Oak Brown to paint the fur areas, because my initial thought with painting this miniature was to paint it black and then dry brush it and then put some ink washes over it, but it wouldn't have looked like any of the other miniatures that I've painted for Burrows and Badgers, where I have relied more on glazes and blending rather than my lazy style of painting. And furthermore, bats aren't really just black. So what we're doing here is we're using Oak Brown to make a very dark brown fur. And we're covering all of the fur elements with that. And then we're going to use a Nuln Oil wash. I'm trying to minimise the amount of washes that I'm using on this, because as with all of these Burrows and Badgers miniatures, I'm trying to get a more cartoony style. So this is going all over those browns, which I've also put on the fingers as well, although the fingers will be getting a coat of a different colour later on. We're now switching to leather brown, and we're going to do a wet brush or overbrush over the fur areas. This is a bit like a dry brush, but with a little bit more paint on the brush for a less dusty finish. And we're just going lightly over all of those fur areas. We're now switching to Abaddon Black because we're going to deal with the wings, and the wings really were a challenge for me. First of all, I'm using Abaddon Black to neaten up the membranes between the fingers. So just carefully reapplying Abaddon Black up to each of the digits. Obviously being careful not to go over any of the brown areas that we've already painted. I'm now switching to Eshin Grey, and this is for the arms and the fingers and the talons, and I have watered this down a lot, and I'm going to gradually build up these colours. On the arms, I want it to blend naturally into where the fur of the body starts, and on the digits, I just want to gradually build up those colours without it completely covering up everything that's already on the model. I'm then going to introduce some Abaddon Black to the Eshin Grey, and I'm putting that onto the wings to blend the transition between the Eshin Grey and the Abaddon Black. And I'm doing this in several stages, gradually adding more black each time, and with the darkest blacks only putting it into the recesses. So I'm almost painting this model in reverse, really. I've started with the lighter greys, and then I'm building up glazes of darker and darker colour, so that I get something that's closer to black at the finish rather than it looking very grey, but the darkest areas of the miniature are in the recesses, and it's just a matter of time and patience, really. But with that done, we're going to switch to Dawnstone, and we're going to do a fine highlight on the fingers and the tops of the arms and the most prominent areas, just being careful not to go over any of the wings that we have already painted. And with that done, we can move on to the hood, because the wings are done now, and that's the trickiest bit. We are giving the hood a coat of alien purple, and we're actually going to give it 2 thin coats, just to make sure we've got a good base colour. What I wanted was for this miniature to have very night, dark colours. He is the Fang in the dark, the evil assassin. So we're going to use Nuln Oil just to knock down that purple, bring out the details. Just carefully applying it all over that purple. We're switching back to Alien Purple, and we're going to thin it out a little bit, and we're just going to reapply over the most raised areas just to bring some of the colour back up. And then I'm switching to Deep Blue because I wanted it to look like a nighttime hood, and so I've done a glaze of blue, and I think in the end I was a little bit heavy-handed with the blue, and the hood has ended up looking more blue than purple. But that's okay. We're now switching to Skeleton Bone, and we're going to do the handle of his dagger. just carefully applying it 2 thin coats, trying not to get it over the talons and claws that we've already painted. We're using Leadbelcher for the knife itself. Just very carefully applying that. We really don't want to get any of the metallic colours over the wings and things. Those wings took ages to paint, so we need to be really careful here. Going right up to those edges. We're going to give a coat of Nuln Oil over the blade, just to bring out any texture on that blade and to redefine the edges. And then we're going to give a coat of Seraphim Sepia to the bone, again just to bring out details, define the edges a little more. And because I want the dagger to be like a flash in the dark, we're using some Stormhost Silver. And we're just going to apply that along the most prominent areas of the blade. Again, being careful not to go over things we've already painted. And then Screaming Skull on the handle as a little edge highlight on the most prominent details. Not something I would necessarily normally bother with, but I tend to do it more on Burrows and Badgers stuff. We're now going to use Celestra Grey, and we are going to pick out the little claws, the teeth, the nails, anything like that really. And we're using grey to keep it in that darker range of colours, or lack of colours. Bugman's Glow is going to be used to dot in the tongue. It's such a small tongue on this miniature, you don't really need to do it, but it adds a little something if you just very carefully dot that in. And then Abaddon Black for the eyes. I'm thinning the Abaddon Black down and being very careful, covering the eyes 2 coats just to make sure they're nice and clear on the miniature because the fur is so dark. And then Pallid Witch Flesh, again watered down to put a little dot on each eye for like a reflection. And that finishes the miniature apart from the base. So for the base, I'm just going to put some texture paint down, Abaddon Black on the rim, and then once it's been completely varnished, I'm going to use some flock and scatter just to add a little bit of texture and detail to that base. But that is it, another finished miniature and the first evil warrior for my Burrows and Badgers collection. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please consider pressing that like button. If you have really enjoyed it, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.